Mr. Speaker,
Ms. Zwiener, for what purpose?
will the gentleman yield for some questions?
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, I do.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Chairman Buckley. So, Chairman, are you aware that Arizona legislation providing a voucher program used a similar priority system to what's proposed in your underlying bill?
Yeah, I'm aware of a program. I don't know the details of their program, though.
Well, I'll posit to you, it used a very similar priority system, the same priority system Representative Bucy's trying to address with his amendment. Are you aware that there have been some deep dive studies by the Brookings Institution and others into the income levels that ended up using vouchers under Arizona's priority system?
I'm sure there are. Most states do have collect that data, so they know who's in the program.
Yeah. So some of the in-depth breakdown found that 52% of Arizona voucher recipients are from zip codes in the top quarter of household incomes. Were you aware of that?
I was not. I don't know what that means in Arizona, what that number is, how much. I don't know that income level.
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I would presume that's probably over 500% of the poverty level if you're in the top 25%. Were you aware that over 75% of vouchers go to families in zip codes with median incomes above Arizona's average?
I'm not advised to their particular prioritization.
Okay. Are you aware that only 5% of voucher recipients in Arizona came from zip codes in the lowest quartile, the lowest 25% of median incomes?
No, Representative Zwiener, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah. And so I'll posit this too, though I'm anticipating your answer. Are you aware that that means that in the wealthiest zip codes in Arizona, students were 10 times more likely to use their voucher program using the same system of prioritization you've proposed here?
Yeah.
Wealthy zip codes 10 times as likely to use that voucher program as those in low-income zip codes.
But I'm not aware of that, but I'm aware that this bill caps the highest earners at 20%. Leaving the other 80% for middle-class families to access this program.
Representative Buckley, given those concerns and how we've seen this work out in other states, why not follow Representative Bucy's amendment, accept it onto the bill to ensure that these voucher programs are just for people under 500% of the poverty line?
Because I don't pretend to be able to see in the hearts and minds and lives of Texans, and I believe that all Texans should have access. All parents should have that choice, and the bill is prioritized in a way that matches the families that we believe lack that access to educational choice at this time.
So you mentioned that it's capped at 20% in the underlying bill. 20% is still $200 million in this first year of the program. $200 million. Should we really be spending $200 million of Texas taxpayer money to subsidize people who are, quite frankly, well off and can afford private schools if that's what they choose?
The bill is prioritized, though, and it begins with a middle class prioritization that understands that families have different incomes and different needs. But through 80% of the program, there'll be no one in the program earning more than $160,000 a year. No family earning more than that.
I'm sorry, you said no one in the program or just 20% max?
In the first 80%.
In the first 80%.
Yeah.
Okay, so we still have 20% that can be earning any amount of money, correct?
Yeah, they're capped at 20%, the earners of 160 and above.
So up to $200 million of Texas taxpayer money could go to billionaire children and millionaire children potentially.
Or it could go to a civil service worker and a fireman that were earning $161,000 a year. I mean, we tend to take the argument to the extremes, and billionaire talk, it is the extreme, but there's a whole lot of ground in between the top earners, and even at that, it's capped at 20%.
Yeah. I mean, Representative Buckley, I think the concern is we have an option here to put a hard cap, and I mean, would you, if you don't think 500% of the poverty level that Representative Bucy has proposed is the right number, Is there a cap you can determine that we can stick on this bill to make sure we're not using taxpayer dollars to subsidize people who were going to send their kids to private school anyways?
I believe that the prioritization system in this bill prioritizes the right families, and the cap in the fourth priority is the right policy decision.
So we just discussed how the prioritization system in Arizona has, quite frankly, not worked and has has sent their funds to the highest earners. Is there a state where a similar prioritization system has worked in delivering these dollars to low-income and middle-class families?
Absolutely. If you look across the country, you'll see that that most ESA recipients are certainly not wealthy people. You know, we tend to make a discernment whether or not they're currently in private school. Where I'm from, the families I know in private school are not wealthy.
Well, where you're from, I presume none of these students are receiving vouchers because we haven't passed it yet. So I'm curious which state...
But families are making that sacrifice.
Which state has used this prioritization system and kept those dollars mostly with middle income and lower income families?
I'm not advised on that, but I'm advised that this bill will.
So we have an example of failure, but we don't have an example of success. Is that correct?
I don't know how you define failure.
I mean, I would posit that...
If you define failure by the income of a family that's participating in the ability to send their child to the school of their choice that's never had that opportunity before, or a struggling family that's currently in a private school, kids with special needs in Killeen, Texas, that are working 2 or 3 jobs to do it, that's an absolute fact. If you define that as failure, then we'll take that failure.
Well, Representative Buckley, could we limit it to those types of families then?
Absolutely not, because I don't presuppose to know what income level there is and the circumstances of families. And so this bill is prioritized in a way that will certainly match the needs of those vulnerable Texans and finally give parents an option.
All right. Well, thank you for answering my questions, Representative Buckley. I appreciate it.
Sure.